Right, let's try that again, but this time with the microphone turned on. What a dumbass. Right. It'll probably be quicker this time because last time I did rant on a bit, even though you couldn't hear me because I'm an idiot and I didn't turn the microphone on. Okay, so today, less than 100% productive, but interesting. So I spent most of the day answering questions primarily from Reddit. A couple of interesting Git ones. Towards the end, we hit the usual, is DevOps now just a job title question? Which the answer, by the way, is it's whatever you want it to mean. Okay. Okay, I'm not going to go into the whole rant again, but broadly speaking, my attitude is this. As soon as somebody says to me, oh, we're going to do DevOps, or we're going to, or we're going to do Agile, okay, the first thing I do is switch off, because invariably what they mean is, we've got this label applied to a set of ideas and we've got a notion of what those ideas are. Rather than tell you that, though, we're just going to use the label because everybody knows what it means, which is bullshit, of course, because everybody doesn't know what it means. And in fact, almost no two people can agree what it means. A more useful thing to do is say, right, we are going to create a self-service desk for developers. Okay. Explain to me what that means. That means that developers will be able to go and with a click on a website, they'll be able to create a selection of environments and so on. So you start explaining exactly what it is you're going to do. We're going to create a pipeline so that when a developer commits a change, it is automatically built, submitted for testing, they're notified if it fails. It goes into standby mode. They get a certain amount of time to resolve it, otherwise it's automatically backed out. If they resolve it, it goes forward into a more complete test in an environment, blah, 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 blah. When you explain what you're going to do in terms of your CI/CD pipelines, that's much more interesting. If you then want to give the people who are doing this work the title of DevOps engineer or whatever, great, okay, fine, whatever. But it doesn't tell you anything. It's a bit like, but not really. But it's a bit like somebody saying, yes, I'm a doctor. My brother's a doctor. He's not a medical doctor, but you might have thought he was if I told you he was a doctor. Okay. He has a doctorate. Therefore, he is correctly referred to as doctor. But he's not a medical doctor. And this is the same kind of problem as we get with DevOps engineer or even engineer. It doesn't really tell you a great deal on its own. You need a lot of context. And the same thing goes for, we're doing DevOps. Again, I'm going to need a lot more context. I'm going to have to look at your documentation and have to look at your organization. Look at what you say you do, look at what you actually do, which are often very different things. This is why I always treat with a slight pinch of salt anything I see in conference presentations, for example. First of all, I've done that kind of presentation and I know that obviously I'm going to show you the best bits of whatever I've been doing. I won't show you all of the bullshit shortcuts, little hack jobs that I've done to get things working. I'm going to show you the highlights. The problem is, as a consumer of this stuff, you look at it and you think, wow, that's amazing. How did you get all that to work? And the answer, of course, is it's usually 99% perspiration, 1% inspiration. It's one of those things where people have when you're consuming it and looking at it from this side, it looks like everything was perfect from day one. It very seldom is. A few interesting talks have been about, oh, this is what went horribly wrong. Anyway, that was okay. That was the short version of the rant I did first time. What else? Mac Mini. I've got an old 2010 Mac Mini that I want to use for a backup server. Literally just to sit there and do nothing but the backups day in, day out. This is offsite backups. Now, the story is this. I'm using a backup service that uses Java and it requires a UI. Why they can't produce a command line version, I don't know, but they don't. So I found a Docker container that somebody's already put together that allows you to run the UI through web interface, as in I can access it from a browser. The short story being that that means I can run a headless server. Means I don't have to install all the bullshit of a graphical user interface just so that I can use this backup software. I want the Mac Mini to be a dedicated server doing nothing but these backups. The reason for that is, for one reason or another, the backup system requires a lot of memory. Specifically, they recommend 1 GB of RAM per terabyte that you're going to back up, as in terabyte in your backup set. Okay. The problem is my Mac Mini is from like 2010, and it was only the base version. It was originally just sort of a home theater system. It wasn't intended for anything flash, anything intensive in any way. So 4 GB was plenty. Anyway, short story is I've got more than 4 TB of backup. So although I could run it with 4 GB of RAM, I figure I might as well max out the memory. Well, the maximum memory it can take is 8 GB. So I've just bought off eBay a couple of 4 gig sticks from an old Mac, and those are now in the machine. I haven't tested it yet, but I will. Once I have, I'll be installing Linux, a headless Linux on it. Why? Because the backup software, where it runs in Java, it'll run on Linux and it'll run on Mac OS. Problem is, it won't run on the Mac OS that the Mac Mini is currently running, and I can't update the Mac OS on the Mac Mini because Apple no longer supports it. So, the Mac Mini is going to get trashed, built up with Linux, and everything will be fine. Side note, I've got an old Mac Pro from about the same time. It might even be older, actually. One of the old Mac Pros, the big, lovely silver ones. And that's got, that's got a whole load of stuff in it. But I'm going to trash that as well and turn it probably into a Proxmox server. I've read a few articles that suggest it's possible. So what the hell? It's been sitting in my server rack for what, year, 2 years, turned off. I never use it. So yeah, so this hopefully put new life into old hardware. That's another thing that's been distracting me today. I did, however, in the last hour or so, get round to doing some work on setting up the Docker images for starting to test these formulae. So I've got a base Docker image that really just has nothing but the Salt minion in it, and then that will then be used as the base image for the ones that test the formula. And the ones that test the formula, all they really will be doing is adding anything special for that formula, specifically all of the infrastructure tests and so on, but those will be mounted in the volume. Actually, come to think about it, it might be unnecessary if I just put the test infra install into the base image. Probably don't need a special image for the formula unless I've got special requirements, I guess. But, I I may just do it all with one image. I mean, it's not. There's no real advantage to having it in two. How often would I need to? I mean, if I suppose if I, yeah, I'll think about that. I may just split up the install into 2 layers so I don't have to install it as often. Then just have it all in one image. Don't know. Anyway, long and the short of it is not done a huge amount on that, so nothing to show really. Like I say, I've spent most of the day making excuses about why I can't, or why I haven't got around to doing it. But got it. There's no desperate hurry. Well, other than the fact I'm starting to feel guilty again about not making any progress. But it's just interesting. When you get an interesting question, it's interesting to do a decent job of answering it. Anyway. Oh, personal side note, I think I might have figured out why I keep feeling so crappy. I think I've got my bedroom too warm now. I'm going to try turning the heating off in the bedroom and let it cool down overnight. In the hope of getting a better night's sleep. Maybe that'll buck me up a bit. Right. That's it. See you tomorrow.